Alexis, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my January wrap-up and my February TBR. So in January, I made a TBR of 10 books. I ended up reading 8 books the entire month with 2 DNFs. I did not stick directly to my TBR because I started to read on Libby, just kind of abandoned my TBR. So I feel like in February I'm going to try again. But yeah, let's start with talking about my DNFs. The first book I DNF'd was Meet Me at the Cupcake Cafe by Jenny Colgan. I've had this book on my TBR forever, 2013, 2014. I feel like if I was a little bit more interested in and like excited to read this one, that I would have liked it more. But I made it to the end of chapter 1 and was so extremely bored and I could not retain anything that I read. So I decided that it's just time to get rid of this book and that I will not be reading it. The second book that I DNF'd, The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I have not heard anything great about this book. I know some people like it, but majority of people did not like this book, and I can see why. The main character is so immature. So immature. I went into this thinking it was going to be pretty funny. It's about 2 workplace enemies. They're like competing for the same job. And I was like, oh cool, you're like competing for a job as a assistant to the CEO. Oh, you gotta be like in your late 20s, early 30s, right? I don't know how old these characters are supposed to be, but she's acting like she's 12, maybe 10. Like, it's bad. Her work computer password is, I hate Joshua forever. In all caps, that is little kid behavior. Like, as an adult, if you have a grudge with someone, you don't act this way. And I just could not continue to read it. I was cringing. And I don't think I've ever cringed so hard at a book before. I was just done. So I made it to page 7 and I quit reading. And most likely I'm never going to pick this up again. Sorry if that offends you because you really liked this book, but I just couldn't do it. So let's get into the books I actually read. The first one I actually read was Final Offer by Lauren Asher. And this is book 3 in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This book follows Callahan, or Cal, as he goes by. He has to stay at the family lake house for the entire summer and then sell it in order to get his inheritance. And this is basically talking about his time there. And he runs into his ex-girlfriend, who he finds out when he gets there is living in the family guest house, I guess you could say. She has to then become on board to sell the house. So he's trying to convince her to sell it. And I hated her. I feel like he deserved so much better. And the amount of crap that she threw at him was unwarranted. Like, this character was probably one of my least favorite characters in a book ever. And I almost DNF'd it because I could not stand her. But I continued it through because I wanted to finish the series. And I had a lot of love for Cal. And I also really, really enjoyed her daughter, Cammie. Honestly, Cammie was the saving grace of this book, in my opinion. This was my least favorite book in the whole series. But I still gave it 3.75 stars. And I still recommend the whole series to everybody. Betting on You by Lynn Painter was the next book that I read this month. And I've loved every book I've ever read by Lynn Painter. Her YA books are just chef's kiss. Like, I don't know how she does it. She's like the queen of writing rom-coms. And like, I feel so giddy every time I read one of her books. So this book follows Bailey and Charlie. They're both children who grew up in like divorced families. And they meet on a plane, both going to visit their dads, I believe, because I think they both live with their moms. So they're on a plane to go visit their dads, and they get to talking a little bit. They hate each other at first. He thinks she's stuck up, and she thinks he's annoying. So the plane ride was like an interesting thing and the interesting time for them. And then they don't see each other again for, I don't know if it actually said how long, but it was like years. when they finally meet again, they realize that they're working together and they start to form a friendship. I really liked them as friends. They have like amazing banter when they're friends. But one thing I will say about this book that I didn't like is that she put too much language in here. Some of the cuss words that she used in this book, she used like so often that it just didn't make sense. Like there was a few times she was trying to fit the F-bomb into a sentence and it just like didn't go there. So then the sentence was kind of wonky. But other than that, I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. And then the next book that I read this month was The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And I'm not 100% sure if this is the 4th book in the Inheritance Game series or if this is a spinoff of the Inheritance Game series. But either way, I recommend everything that this lady writes, but especially this whole universe. This book follows Grayson and Jameson, and it's basically 2 different storylines. The storylines don't really ever connect, which I wish they did. I feel like it would have made it a little bit better for me. But I really highly enjoyed this book. I know that there was some people that were kind of upset about this, considering that it was 2 different storylines and it wasn't about all 4 brothers. But since I went into this book with the knowledge of that, I feel like I enjoyed it more. But I gave this book 4.25 stars and I absolutely loved it. And then at this point of the month, I started reading on Libby. So I don't have the physical copy of any of these books yet. I plan on getting them, at least most of them, if not all of them. But the first book that I read was When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Calthini. This was a memoir, so I didn't rate that because I feel really weird about rating memoirs. I don't know how to explain it. I just don't feel like it's right to critique someone's life. But this book was really sad, but also I recommend it. So this book is about Paul, who is a neurosurgeon, who finds out that he has cancer. And it's telling like what his life was like before the cancer diagnosis, what it was like right after he found out, and then like him living with this diagnosis and sadly passing away with it. The book never gets fully finished, but the last like chapter is his wife telling like what happened after he passed away and stuff, because his last wish was to get the book published and he sadly couldn't do it on his own, so she finished and published it for him. I just recommend this book because to me, I feel like you get a better understanding of what someone with a terminal illness is going through and like how they actually feel. So I do recommend it. But it is a hard book to read and it is pretty sad. Then the next book I read was In 5 Years by Rebecca Surley. I'm not going to lie, I went into this book thinking like that it was going to be bad because I've only heard bad reviews about it. So I was like kind of nervous and I was like, do I really want to read it? I don't know. Like, I feel like I should. And I'm so glad that I read it. Like, I don't know why I was so scared to read it. I guess because of the reviews. Never like fully judge a book off of what someone else rates it. Like take their rating into consideration if you guys have like similar book taste. But like also try a book out for yourself. If it's something that you think you might like, just read it and form your own opinion on it. Because I almost did not read this book and I would have been so upset that I didn't. This book is about Danny, who's a lawyer, and it feels like her life is like perfect, and she finally gets her dream job and she gets engaged to her boyfriend, and like her life is like all the pieces are fitting together and she's happy. And then one night she goes to sleep, and when she wakes up, she's 5 years in the future and she's engaged to a man that she's never met before. And so now she's trying to figure out what's going on. An hour later, she wakes up again in real life and is back 5 years in the past, and her life is normal, but that moment like affects her like mentality, and so now she's like constantly just thinking about that dream and what it means, and it affects the next 5 years of her life basically. But there was also some like plot twists and some turns that I did not see coming, and this book was practically amazing in my eyes, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I highly recommend it. And then the next book that I read I actually read on Kindle Unlimited instead of Libby. But I read Reawakened by Odette Bean. And this book is basically season 1 of the show Once Upon a Time. First of all, if you've not seen the show, what are you doing? Get up and watch it. It is one of my all-time favorite shows. And when I saw that they had this book about it, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I love this show. Maybe I'll like the book. And then I found out that the book was basically retelling season 1. And I was like, dude, yeah, I'll still read it. It's not what I was expecting, but I'm excited about it. I love this show. And this is a good way for me to watch it again by reading about it. And I was a little upset by it because there was like a bunch of mistakes and there was a few things left out. And by mistakes, I mean just like spelling and grammar and all that. But it did leave out a few parts of the show. But again, it's the like entire first season, so of course it does. You can't have everything in there because then it would be a super long book. But before you read this book, I highly recommend you watch the show. And I think you will thank me for it. The show is just so great. Then the next book I read was Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. I went into this book also with kind of low expectations because I never really seen any good reviews on this book. I've seen really bad ones and I've seen a lot of people DNF it. So I was like really nervous about it. I also didn't really like it that much. I could not connect with any of the characters and I kind of felt bored the whole time. I did end up finishing it, but I think I might give it another chance and read it again later. Like, I don't know if I'll read it again this year, but maybe next year. Just to see if it was actually the book that I didn't like or if I was just like going through like a reading slump and just wasn't having it. I'm not really sure, but I didn't really like it. And I gave it 2.5 stars. And then the last book that I read in January was called Going by Coastal by Delilah Adler. And this book was about Natalia, who lives with her dad in New York. And her mom and dad got divorced when she was, I believe, 7. So her and her mom didn't have the best relationship. And so she has to make a choice this summer on if she wants to try to rekindle her relationship with her mom and go spend the summer with her mom in LA, or if she wants to just give up on that dream and stay home with her dad. And I thought it was a really cute book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. So now we're going to do my February TBR. So there are a few like new releases that I'm really excited to read this month. And I'm going to try to hopefully find a prompt that will I'll be able to use those for. If not, I'll just add them on at the end of this. But I think I'm going to pick 8 prompts. And we'll see if I can get the books I really want to read on here. Alright. Oh, also I got a new bucket because it's Valentine's Day this month. And I just thought this was really cute. Anyway. Prompt number 1. I only need 1. Alright, prompt number 1. A book with a name in the title. Okay, this is a great prompt. And I think I'm going to pick Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. Because I've heard amazing things about this book. And I'm just so excited about it. But I am scared that I'm going to cry. I hate crying in books. And I feel like this is going to be one of those. It's going to hit me. Alright, prompt number 2. A book published this year. Okay, well, I can go ahead and use one of my anticipated releases books because it was published this year. So I think for this one, I'm going to pick Bride by Allie Hazelwood. That comes out on February 6th. So that's going to be added to this month's TBR. Alright. Prompt number 3. Start the longest series on your TBR. So the longest series on my TBR. I feel like that'll have to be the Villain series by Serena Valentino. I have 10 of the 11 books right now out of the series because the 11th one comes out this year. So, I feel like I'm going to have to start this one. This is book 1, which is Fairest of All, which is a villain origin story, I guess you could say, based on the Wicked Queen. I'm excited. And it's about time, because I've had that on my TBR since, like, it came out in 2018 or something. Prompt number 4. A book with a person on the cover. And I am going to count the, like, little illustrated, cartoony people on covers. Because I don't have a lot of, like, actual people on covers, but let's see here. You know what? I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to pick Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This one is an actual person on the cover. I don't know a whole lot about Kennedy Ryan's books, but I've heard good things about them. So I'm excited to read this one. Prompt number 5. Buy a new book. You deserve it. Okay. Well, one of the books I plan on buying in a couple days is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. So that's going to be added to this TBR. Prompt number 6. A middle grade book. Well, the first middle grade book on here I see is Kingdom Keepers Disney After Dark by Ridley Pearson. So I guess we have to add that one. Prompt number 7. A book with blue on the cover. I think I'm going to pick The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes for this prompt. So this is prompt number 8. I think I might do 10 because I'm just having fun. A book that you started and never finished. There is one book in particular that I'm thinking of. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Yes, this one right here. How to Love Your Neighbor by Sophie Sullivan. I started this one back in October, I believe. And I made it to page 47 and I just never picked it back up. Like, I still have the candy wrapper I was using as a bookmark. So guess I'll pick that one back up. I don't know why I stopped reading it. I just never finished. Okay, I will pick 2 more because there's at least 2 more books that I want to read in February. See if I can get them on this TBR. If not, I'm just going to add them at the end. And then it'll just be an ambitious TBR. But that's okay. A book that starts with the first letter of your name. Well, my name is Alexis, so it starts with an A. And one of the books that I wanted to put on here fits that prompt, so I'm excited. So I'm going to pick All We Were Promised by Ashton Lattimore. I was lucky enough to get an ARC of this book, and it comes out on April the 2nd. And I'm so excited for this. This is this author's debut novel, and it just sounds amazing. So stay tuned for a reading vlog to hear my full thoughts on this book to see if it's something you would be interested in reading. And then the last prompt I'm going to pick is read a fiction book. That's most of my TBR, so that's easy. But I think I'm going to pick If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin, because book 2, I guess you could say, is coming out on February 6th, If Only I Had Told Her, which is Finn's point of view, and this book is Autumn's point of view. So I need to read this one first and then read that one. So stay tuned for a reading vlog featuring both books. And there was one other book that I wanted to put on my February TBR that I did not get a prompt for, which is The Breakup Tour by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. I guess that will be our 11th book for the month. Here's a recap of the 12 books I am going to read in February, or attempt to read in February. If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. If Only I Had Told Her by Laura Nowlin. All We Were Promised by Ashton Lattimore. The Breakup Tour by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. How to Love Your Neighbor by Sophie Sullivan. Bride by Allie Hazelwood. The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. Kingdom Keepers Disney After Dark by Ridley Pearson. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. Fairest of All by Serena Valentino. And Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and let me know below what your TBR is for February, and let's start a conversation. Again, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day.